guys, welcome to Legally Armed, Locked, Loaded and Lawful, and today we've got a really special guest with us. We've got Deon Coetzee, and Deon is a specialist of sorts when it comes to the security industry. He's also a baron of caffeine infused products that keep us awake in the morning. So it's fantastic to have Deon with us. He runs a really special program that you guys can also look at. We'll have all these details at the end of the show that you guys can take a look at and look at the stuff that they do. Maybe join their courses. And today, what we're going to be talking about specifically, now that we're heading to the end of the year with end of year safety, when people are at home, criminals tend to also want to do shopping because they want to have a nice end of year too. Crime is statistically a lot higher in this time period. People have a lot more access to drugs, have a lot more access to alcohol, those sort of things. So we're going to also talk about firearms specific instances in these sort of scenarios as well. But yeah, over to you, Deon. Can you tell the viewers what it is that you guys do? When did you guys start? As far as I know, you guys are one of the oldest security sort of industry guys in South Africa. You guys started at the very beginning.
Yeah, I think the grayness in my beard is what gives it away. We started we started in 1996 actually, and we started just with farm safety at that stage. I was a farmer during a phase of my life, so I knew farming and I knew the threats to farming. So that's why, with my background and being a farmer, I understood that sort of environment, and we got involved in farm safety. Eventually, that led to us training farmers. Our focus mostly was on the Eastern Free State border with Lesotho and Swaziland border, where the guys actually had serious problems.
We started Lady Brown, those areas.
Yeah, so met a lot of funny characters and had a lot of incidents there. Got in contact with some syndicates and stuff there. So really paid some serious school fees in those early days, and then we started training farmers, obviously on request, when they started to get to know us a bit more. And we started training them, helping them with their security as groups, as farm watchers. Eventually, we opened up a shop in Pretoria, in Centurion, where we started selling knives and less lethal guns, which obviously caused another ripple in the ether. And we were the scorn of the gun community for some time because we dared to sell less lethal stuff. That then obviously eventually we got rid of that of the shop because we grew into coffee. Started a couple of coffee brands. Today you can get Jan Rolf's Boeretroos, and we some fingers in the pies, and obviously we grew internationally. So at this stage today, what we do, we're basically standing on three services or three legs. The one is our training leg. The other one is still the farm safety, farm security. And then lastly, we do risk analysis, which has since grown international, into Australia, into Europe, into Africa, and so on and so forth. So those are the three main areas of business that we currently do. When it comes to training, people most probably know, maybe if they don't, that we developed the Loan Operator Program, which is a year-long program on the level 1 phase, where we teach all the aspects with regards to self-defense. Now that in itself obviously is controversial again because we're doing it differently. We have people calling us all kinds of names and that's also okay. At the end of the day, the feedback we get from the customers that we've trained so far is tremendous. It is the largest of its kind in South Africa. And we also have that whole program as an online program to be launched in the US very soon. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes happening as well. Yeah, so
that's very cool.
That's it.
Yeah, no, Loan Operator seems to be quite successful, and I see a lot of your guys' posts coming up, which is great. And I think it's a lot of good. And then I mean the viewers must take a look at the Loan Operator course and get in contact about it, and learning how to utilize a firearm or defend yourself as a man or a woman on your own or as part of a family unit is something that's very important. And I mean it doesn't go as far as legal armed. Yes, is involved in helping people get their firearms licenses and helping them with their proficiencies, but there's always an encouragement to further your learning. And carry on from there. It doesn't help having a firearm and carrying it, but you don't know how to shoot from a seated position. You don't know how to shoot in a concealed area. Just clearing a house in a weaver stance with your arms out, or in an isosceles stance with your arms out and an O light on the tip of it. Isn't necessarily the best thing to do. There's lots of things that I think that people will find beneficial with Lone Operator. So I think it's something that everyone should take a look at. It's really, really cool. I'm glad that you guys are doing it. Seeing as that there's been a lot of interesting characters out there. We won't say any names or other businesses, but we've seen some pretty horrible teaching methodologies out there. One thing being a hero, but learning how to do it correctly. Navy SEALs, military operators all around the world, people like Deon who have the experience, many years of experience in these kind of things. Go to these guys and learn from them. So because you've been in the industry for such a long time, you've been exposed to various things. You mentioned that you had an office in Centurion. Centurion at one point had quite a bad crime rate. I don't know how it is now. I haven't been up there for years. But you've got farm experience and you've got suburban life, white picket fence, Labrador type experience as well. Let's just discuss a few things when it comes into the festive season now, in a sort of suburban setting. What are some of the important things that you think people need to look out for in terms of their own safety around their house and with their families? What do you recommend people do and pay attention to when it comes to that sort of thing?
Yeah, Tim, I think I want to tap off from our risk analysis portion, because in our risk analysis portion, we will look at a mall, for instance, and we would analyze the risk of that specific mall and drill down into all the facets that might endanger the mall, the staff working there, the patrons to the mall, and so on and so forth. So if you take from that, then first of all, I think to answer your question, we need to sort of discern, what's going to happen over the festive season. Where will people be? So people will be on the road, traveling to and from places. People will be either at home or at friends, having a braai or having a Christmas lunch or whatever. And then people will be in shops. So if we look at these three scenarios, obviously there's some other scenarios sitting at the restaurant and so on and so forth as well. But specifically over this period, I think these three scenarios are it. Now, the first thing that I always say to people is that you need to keep in mind that crime, the reason why we do tactical training and not strategical training is that you can't prepare for crime strategically, in a sense. Just let me explain. If I'm getting in my car and I'm driving down to Durban from Centurion, that means I'm going to probably stop over on Harry Smith for a coffee. I can't say that I will be attacked in Harry Smith by a Ford Ranger with 4 guys carrying fire and guns and approaching me from north, south, east, and west. That's a strategic thing, so I cannot plan ahead for that. I can only plan ahead for the possibility of an attack. That attack can look in any form and shape and way. It can unfold. It might be 2 vehicles with 6 guys or 8 people, doesn't matter. The thing I have to rely on is my tactical training, the tactics that I've learned and that I've polished during training. So when I'm in Harry Smith and I get out of my vehicle and it happens, then I'm going to have to start acting tactically. I'm going to have to draw my firearm, grab my wife, grab my children. I'm going to start doing things. Right. So don't try and prepare or plan strategically for this. Know that we live in a high-risk country. We don't need to mention the stats. I think everybody knows what the stats are and how hectic it is. But that's why training is, I think, the building block of everything. Now, what's interesting currently with us, we find that our customer base have shifted. In the beginning, when we started the Lone Operator program, we got all the guys who had all the gear and all the knowledge and good training and could shoot straight and so forth. Now we got a lot, and the majority of the people that we get starting loan operator now are new gun owners. That's people that just, and I'm talking about they got their guns, they've just got their guns in the week before starting the course. So on that Saturday on the range, it's the first time that they are actually using the gun in this environment, which is a very, very good thing. So it tells me something about the mindset of South Africans, where we are. People understanding that we need to get specific training for the times we live in. So let's look at those three scenarios. While I'm at home, while I'm on the road traveling, and while I'm in a mall somewhere. Obviously, the first thing in all these scenarios is the age-old thing that everybody knows about now, and that's the awareness factor. How aware am I? What am I seeing in my surroundings? You know, can I look around? Can I pick up something? Am I switched on enough? And I don't know if you want to put a link to the Cooper's Color Code of Awareness or something, but that's good videos and stuff that people can get. That's being used in all the training courses by most probably all of the well-known trainers in South Africa. We all use the OODA loop and the Color Code of Awareness as sort of a first line of defense for people. The same thing should happen when you are partying and visiting with your friends, because that's when you are usually surprised, you know, and that's when you hear the stories of, oh, and the next moment. And the question is always, what happened between now and the next moment? Because something had to happen. A gate had to open. People had to scale a wall. A dog had to bark. Something had to happen to warn me that something is different. And that's the period where we miss out. So that will be either in my vehicle or at my house or in the mall, doesn't matter. So the awareness factor is something that will take you a long way in safeguarding yourself and your family. If we just go to firearms, and I know there's, well, most probably not your audience, but there's still a large portion of South Africans out there who are very against firearms, and I think that should also change. If you understand your firearm, if you get good training with the firearm, if you are confident and competent with your firearm, then I think that is one of the tools that is necessary to have nowadays, because that's also something that you can use in any and all of the above scenarios, at your home, traveling, and so forth. Then simple tips like when you are visiting with your friends at home, when you are braaiing, you know, have you got a firearm very close to you, within reach? Have you got any kind of weapon within reach? Have you got a panic button within reach? Have you got your cell phone within reach so that you can get hold of the neighborhood watch should something happen? But have you got some kind of plan in case of somebody jumps over the wall and the next moment they are there, but two people are still in the house busy making salad or whatever? There need to be some form of pre-planning in that event. So guys, okay, this is what we're going to do today, but let's just sort of keep alert of our surroundings. Let's just stay alert of what's going to happen. And I think with that basis in all these scenarios, you can prevent a lot of stuff. Every day we drive in South Africa, and driving in South Africa has become, I think, what do they say? It's something you can actually put on your CV, because it's a life skill. So driving in South Africa, you have to drive for yourself and all the taxis around you and all the other cars around you, because all the traffic lights are down, not working due to load shedding. There's 2 lanes, and everybody suddenly forces 2 lanes to become 4 lanes, and so on and so forth. So while we are driving, we actually every one of us, we are doing defensive driving to an extent. We are looking ahead, we are looking behind, we are looking left and right, and we are watching out for whatever and everything could happen. That's using the OODA loop, that's using the Cooper's Color Code. That's the best practical example that we have. So we are already doing it. We might just as well just keep on doing it and doing it better. Other tips, simple tips like we discussed it before we started the video. This is the season of gifts. We're going to buy people gifts. We're going to buy ourselves nice gifts. We're going to buy our family gifts. That's when you buy that massive 74-inch TV and you leave the box right outside your gate, advertising to the whole world that you now have a brand new TV in your home. So just take the box, tear it up into little pieces, burn it somewhere when you are doing the braai. Just burn the box, let it fizzle away there. Don't need to advertise what you have.
Better yet, store it in case you lose the warranty for the thing and you have to return the bloody thing. That happened to
Well,
me one year. I bought a nice TV and then the warranty then it packed up and I tore the box up and couldn't return it. So yeah, that sort of stuff is important.
yeah, I mean, all kinds of gifts that you buy, whatever boxes you're going to put outside will be advertising what you just have in your house. And it's going to advertise more than that, it's going to advertise a certain level of living. So you might stay in a normal average house, but suddenly there's boxes showing you that I've got PlayStations and new laptops and this and that and the next thing. And that then is stuff that can be stolen and then obviously turned into cash value quickly.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff that you don't want to advertise.
Yeah, when it comes to that sort of stuff, especially bin safety, so bin safety is probably one of the things that we can categorize this as. I've spent a lot of time on the road with police, with law enforcement, with security companies, neighborhood watchers, the better part of the last 8 years doing these sort of things, and we'll often find guys with really ugly looking knives on them or screwdrivers or tools that you'd think that someone who lives on the street, how do they have access to these kind of things? Where do they get them from? And I started asking them, where did you find, waar het jy hierdie mes gekry? Waar het jy hierdie tang gekry? And the first response is always, Melanie, I'm a bin picker, I found it in someone's bin. People are throwing away these things and arming the people. You could very much well be stabbed with the knife that you threw away last week because it's blunt. And these guys can make these things very sharp. So things like that, if you've got knives and stuff like that, rather go drop them off at the police station. The police will take them and dispose of them, or give them to your local security company or your neighborhood watch. Much better and far safer to do that. Even better yet, learn how to sharpen your own knives. It's the best skill, one of the best skills you can have in life. Another thing that came up and that's been quite prominent when it comes to house safety is that because of load shedding, people's batteries for their alarm systems are dying a lot quicker than normal, and they aren't testing them. So when the power goes out, the alarm system goes off, but they couldn't be bothered to talk to their security company and say, listen guys, you need to come and replace the battery or get a better battery in, or something that can last you load shedding. With 4 hours of load shedding in, some of these batteries only last 2 hours. So very, very important to get batteries replaced and take a look at those things. Same as your light bulbs with your spotlights and things like that. Also very, very important stuff. It's, as far as I can think, home safety, another aspect of it is arriving at home. So you've come back from the mall and you've avoided a mass incident at the mall or a robbery at the mall. Everyone's happy. The kids are tired. They're sleeping in the back. You pull into your driveway. And I've seen it so many times. That VW Polo that you bought is gone, and your family's traumatized. What tips can you give for people coming home in their vehicles?
Look, you're going to get home in your vehicle, whether you've been driving at your friends, whether you've been to the mall, whether you've been to work, whether you've been away on holiday, doesn't matter. If we look at vehicle safety, a good thing to do would be to do something like an anti-hijack course. We do present those. I know there's other companies also that present them. That would be a very good thing to do. Get your family involved in that and teach them how to act in face of. But once again, if I'm driving home, I need to understand where is my high risk points. Now, in 2023, with load shedding and everything, we don't often draw cash anymore. We sometimes still do, but mostly we don't. We do EFTs, or we pay with our phones, or we pay with cards, or whatever. But if I go to the mall or wherever I go and I draw cash, I immediately need to know that I'm now in a high risk zone. I'm in an area where people will now try and get to me and try and get the cash, because I now have suddenly become an easier target. The same as when I'm driving in my car. When I'm stopping at the intersection at the robot, I'm now a harder target than when I'm driving 120 k's an hour on the highway. The moment when I'm standing still. But what do people do? The first thing when they stop, what do? Out comes the phone and opens the WhatsApp. Okay. And then what will you read in the newspaper? And the next moment. But nothing was the next moment. The guys were standing there, they were watching you, they were seeing what you're doing, and they saw that you were not aware, you were on your phone, and they broke your window and they did what they do. So
And people, before you carry on there, people think, oh, but how is it possible that these guys can break my windows so quickly? All it takes is a tiny little fragment of a spark plug, and that is enough. If you throw it hard enough at a window, you're going to shatter that window very,
one
very
time,
hard.
one time. So, you know, that's a high risk area. ATM's high risk area. When I stop at my gate, that's a high risk area. Because the moment I the closer I get to my own driveway, the more relaxed I become. Because now I'm done with what I've done in my mind, in my subconscious. I've put that behind me. I'm now coming home. I can now relax and so on. So I open the gate. I'm not aware of what's happening behind me. And that's where most of the hijackings actually happen. And we've all seen these videos where the next moment the car pulls up behind you. So that's when you should be extra alert. You should be most alert when you're going to your driveway. That's when you should switch on. So what do I do if I'm untrained? What do I do if I pick up a suspicious car in my rear view mirror? I just drive around the block. It's easy. Right.
Yeah.
If I take 3 lefts and the guy is still following me, then something is wrong. Then drive to your local shopping center, your Spar, your police station, wherever, and stop there. But don't continue on your route. Don't continue doing what you're doing. If I take 3 lefts, somewhere he must take a right, or other vice versa, doesn't matter. But if I've taken 3 lefts and he's still behind me, then he's looking for me. So then I need to do something else. And that's how you switch on, and that's how you stay switched on.
And something I often tell people when they're coming up to their driveway, if they possibly can, because you often see it in all. Go and look for hijacking videos in South Africa, home hijacking videos, and you'll see that the people pull into the driveway, and there's a car that pulls up behind them to box them in. That is 99% of the time. That's how people are getting hijacked in their homes. So a simple way to avoid it would be to slowly come to a stop just before your driveway, make sure your gate is open, and then pull in, or something like that. If possibly, if you can. I know what my dad does. We've got a big verge outside our property in Durban. My dad just slips off the main road at full speed at 60 k's an hour onto the verge and waits there for the gate to open, and then he pulls in and then closes the gate behind him. But he stops at the gate, closes the gate, and then drives in. It's simple things that are quite safe, clever ways of just avoiding it. Because if you're in the road and you can still drive away, that's great. If you're boxed in, put your car into reverse, because your car can be used as a weapon. And people often forget that.
Is the biggest weapon, you know.
Yeah. If you can afford a BMW or Mercedes Benz, you've got the insurance for it. Floor it. Stuart died 180 patek.
I've seen people, do that with a Datsun Go. They just go with that little Datsun Go, and they do it because the weight of that vehicle. So people shouldn't forget, the moment if I pull in and there's something behind me, I just can go into reverse and then I can just go full out. If you are not insured, then you've got a problem, but if you are insured, that should be fine. My own personal method is a bit controversial and different, might be different from some people's viewpoints. But I refuse to put in a gate motor at my house. So my gate is manually operated. Why? It forces me to stop and get out of the car. If I get out of the car, I can run if I have to run. But not only can I run, but I can shoot from there. I can fight from there.
Yeah.
So before I stop, as I near my gate, I will do my checks and see, okay, all is well. If something's not well, I'll keep on driving. If something is not fine, I'll just keep on driving. But if it's fine, I'll stop. The moment I get out, what's the first thing I do? I observe again. Then I open my gate. My gun is close to me. It's at hand. I can just, draw my firearm and fight if I have to. Or if need be, I can run, get over my neighbor's fence and just run away. They can then take my car if they want to. But I don't want my life for a vehicle. But that's not to say that everybody should do that. I'm not saying to everybody now, take off your gate motors and operate your gates manually. Last night it was pissing with rain and I was actually thinking of getting a gate motor. I was thinking, that's a stupid idea, dude. Now you're going to get wet. But if you're in your car and you get boxed in, just do that. Remember that your car is the weapon and use that weapon effectively.
Yeah, the self-defense laws that we learnt about when we did our proficiencies and we got our competencies for our firearms doesn't necessarily only apply to firearms. It applies to anything that can be used as a weapon, including your fists, a bottle. I've seen there was a woman in KZN a couple of months back that killed a guy that was in her house with a knife. She threw a pot of boiling water on him, and he died on scene from that pot of boiling water. That was legitimate self-defense. It's brutal. It's unfortunate that he had to die that way. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. However, it's legitimate self-defense. She was cleared. She was never arrested. So we spoke about home safety, suburban area. A lot of us are going to spend time in malls. Not me. I live alone, thank goodness, and I use Checkers 6060 and take a lot. I refuse to go to the halls of Mordor and be subjected to the masses. But there's a lot of people who will spend time in malls, and a lot of people who enjoy it. It's a nice way to spend the day. Unfortunately, there seems to be a habit of things happening in this country where incidences at malls are becoming more and more prevalent. We're starting to see a lot more armed robberies, and these guys are packing AKs. They are hitting more than one store. It's cell phone shops, it's jewelry stores, it's not necessarily banks. We don't hear much about bank robberies. CITs are another thing as well that's on the road. But in malls, we seem to be a little bit more at risk. What sort of advice can you give with that? We've already spoken about ATM safety. What other tips do you have?
Now, look, if you look at the mall, obviously in this case you're going to be a bystander. All right, it's not something aimed at you, but you might be the innocent bystander in this robbery happening right next to you, and you walk straight into it. The first thing to remember in that instance is that this is none of your business. So this is not for you to start drawing your firearm and start trying to be the good guy and fighting the fight. Because it might just as well be that you've got some cops coming around the corner and they spot you with a gun in your hand, and you now become the next target. So in the case of you being sort of accidentally trapped in the middle of this robbery, the best thing for you to do would be to try and get out of Dodge as fast as possible, to get away from that scene, and as far away as you can from that scene. There's no love lost in losing here. There's no losing here. The only second prize here is if you die. And you don't want to die because somebody was shooting at somebody else and you happen to be in the middle of that. So in any of those cases, when I walk in the mall and I see the security guard coming past me with all the money in the bags and stuff, I immediately start finding other ways. I start finding myself different routes. Because I don't want to be caught in that crossfire. I don't want to be part of that thing. Okay. Even so, more if you have your wife and your children with you, then that becomes even a bigger risk. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you are inside a shop, so let's say you find yourself inside a jewelry store, buying your wife a gift or whatever, and the robbers walk in, the best thing you can do is comply. If you are a seasoned firearm owner and you've got adequate training and you are comfortable enough with your gun and you see the spot where you can draw the firearm and shoot, then that's the decision you're going to make on that spot. Okay. Nobody's going to tell you you have to. Nobody's going to tell you you should not. That's something you're going to decide there and then. What is the risk for you to now take out your firearm and shoot at these people? Or are you just going to comply and let them get away with what they're doing? What is the most important thing, I think, to say is, well, what should be the most important thing for all of us is the life of ourselves and our loved ones. There's no use in them shooting me or shooting my wife, and it was all because it's a robbery of a jewelry store. It's not even a robbery of myself. So, once again, pick your fights there. If you are being targeted, and if they actually try and rob you, then the situation will have to dictate your actions. In other words, if I've got enough time, I spot them well in advance. I can see what they're trying to do. I can figure out that the attack is imminent. The attack has already started. I'm going to draw my firearm after I've done my scans, check if there's any issues with me shooting, and I'm going to draw my firearm and I'm going to start defending myself and my loved ones. Okay. If I get caught unawares, I'm putting stuff into my boot and my focus is in the boot of my car, and the next moment I'm being grabbed from behind, I'm going to have to play that by ear. I'm going to have to do what I have to do until I get the correct chance to act. So once again, in all of these scenarios, it gets back to being aware of where you are. So if I'm in a mall walking, I need to know where the cash guys are, where the ATMs are. I need to see where I'm at that stage. And if something happens there, will I be able to go this way? I need to be in that constant mindset of sort of finding myself a way out of it in the case of an issue. Once again, if you are a firearms owner, you should know the law. You should know how to carry. Hopefully you are carrying one up, and you're not walking around empty chamber, because if you still have to work with your one hand, your weak hand, you have to work your family, and then the other hand you have to work your firearm. You're not going to rack your firearm. You're going to have serious problems. So hopefully you're carrying one up. Hopefully you're carrying it in the right position. Hopefully you've trained enough so that you can clear your garment, get your firearm out, and do what needs to be done if that happens. So once again, that comes down to the awareness side, comes down to where you are using your OODA loop correctly all the time. And if you have got a firearm, how much training have you had with it? Do you feel comfortable enough that you can actually draw that firearm in a crowded space like a mall and defend yourself? Because I'm certain myself that in 99.9% of the cases, I will not draw my firearm in that mall. Even with my skill level, I will not draw my firearm in that mall, just purely because of the fear of collateral damage. Me shooting the auntie there in Woolworths, trying to buy herself a nice set of pajamas or whatever.
Yeah, and malls are built in a way that some of the shops are, they're not solid walls. Bullets do strange things when they leave the barrel. People think they expect they know what they're going to do when they don't. Pass through and targets, even if you're using hollow points, we've seen people that get shot with hollow points, but the hollow point doesn't necessarily stay inside the person. It does also pass through. You don't want to be the guy who wants to save the day, but you end up changing someone's life forever as well, because your life will also be changed forever that day, depending on what the courts have to say after the matter. So yeah, myself as well, I've sort of resigned myself in the beginning of my journey. I thought, oh yeah, I've got a gun, I can be a Rambo, but I'm not a recce, I'm not a special forces operator. There's that I carry that self-defense firearm for my own personal protection, and it's okay. That, like you said, you mind your own business when it comes to those kind of things. Yeah.
You said an important thing, Tim, and I think people need to understand and realize that. Yes, do we train with kit like bulletproofs and stuff? Yes, we do that. Okay, that's purely to test the kit and to add a bit of stress to the stress inoculation to the scenario. And that. But none of us are special forces operators. We are all civilians. We are civilians living in a very cruel and violent world, but we are civilians first and foremost. Doesn't matter who I am. I bleed exactly the same as the next guy if a bullet hits me or if a knife cuts me. No amount of training, no amount of experience, nothing changes that fact. So, first of all, I need to have some kind of medical training, some kind of medical knowledge, like a stop the bleed course, something good like that, and carry something with me like a tourniquet or something to stop blood with. I need to know how to do that, because the chances of me shooting somebody, I think is fewer than the chances of me having to patch somebody up in a scenario. So that part should not be left out. Am I carrying my tourniquet with me? Am I carrying some kind of IFAK with me where I can actually, will I be able to help somebody should there be an incident where they need to be, saved rather than shot. The second thing, I think what is important is that people should understand that they need to give themselves permission that should they become or should they be in a situation like this, that it is okay to start fighting back. Doing a simple exercise like just asking people, okay, we're going to rope your guns, we're going to make your firearm safe, we're going to rope it, but now you need to draw that gun and aim it at a human person. Nobody wants to do that because it's a firearm. I cannot aim it at somebody. Okay, and then you ask them, okay, but how will you aim this thing at a bad guy if you can't aim it at anybody? Because your mind has got a block on it. And I'm not saying that's what we're doing on training. This is just an exercise, an example. Right? I'm just using it as an example. But I need to give myself permission that it is okay that in a violent South Africa in 2023, I am the provider and protector of my family and myself. So I need to give myself permission that in case of, I will be able to, or I'm okay to actually do something to stop this mess. And then when it goes down, then at least I won't have that half a second of doubt and wondering, oh, can I do this? Is it okay to do this? That's when my
it's important. You've got to play those. I talk to people when I talk to people about it. I remind them that they've got to play those mind games with themselves. Am I actually capable of pulling the trigger on someone that's threatening my life or not? And be honest with yourself, because it's not for everyone. And if you find that you're doubting that or think that maybe you can't, then maybe it's not something that you can train for. It is absolutely, but it's important things. And you mentioned the tourniquet and having it with you. I've always got one within arm's length at the house because there's often shooting incidences outside. I've got one in my pocket always. It's always good to have. It might not be a good idea to draw your firearm and shoot at the bad guys with AK-47s, but when they've left the area and you do find that someone has been shot in the arm or shot in the leg, there's again, you're not obligated to help that person.
Yes.
But if you know how to do it and you know how to use one of these things, this can save someone's life. Absolutely save someone's life.
Definitely. And I think just out of that, if you've now already done all your shopping and everything went well, and now you're walking towards your car and you've got your hands full of, gifts and goodies and stuff. Once again, when you approach your car, know what's happening around your car. Know who is around your car. Don't just walk up to your car, open the boot, and start packing stuff in. If you've got, this whole thing escalates if I've got children, if I've got small children that I now have to strap into seats. Because what happens to my focus now goes to the vehicle and what I'm doing in the vehicle. And suddenly I'm left with this open back without knowing what's behind me. So when you approach that vehicle, make sure that you look and you scan and you see. And if something looks suspicious, then, walk away.
That 65-year-old woman, for example, that's standing there as the car guard, he's not going to stop someone with a gun.
Exactly.
Even if he's 20 years old, he's not going to stop someone with a gun trying to hurt you or your family. In a lot of the cases, they don't even think they're going to stop someone stealing your car. These are just the realities of the country that we live in. So it's very important that you also that you say these things too. And something I wanted to say earlier is that it's important that we have these discussions with our friends and people that we care about, because even having a short discussion with someone about being self-aware, it sticks with them. I had someone that I'm very close to leave my house and drive home the other day, and they had noticed that when I got a phone call. They were about 15 kilometers away from my place. I got a phone call from them. I think I'm being followed. And I've had this discussion with her before, and we've spoken about self-awareness and being followed and just knowing what's going on around you. And she said, I noticed that when I drove out of your road, this car was already behind me. It's still behind me. When I change lanes, it changes lanes as well. I'm going to stop at the garage now and see if they carry on or follow me. And it turns out that they drove past, but when they ended up going back onto the highway, that car was driving very, very slowly. It's almost waiting for them to catch up. They spotted them again, changed lanes. They followed, changing lanes, and I said to them, they were on the phone with me the whole time. I said, listen, put foot. You've got a VTEC, put foot and lose them. And that's what ended up happening. And I said, when you get home, keep looking behind you. Make sure drive around your block a couple of times. So having a conversation just in an informal way over a cup of coffee and saying, listen, you need to pay a little bit more attention to these things. It sticks with people because the problem is people don't know what to do when things happen. But if they've been told something before, then it sticks to their memory, and they have a solution to the problem that they're being presented with, and that's the most helpful thing. So yeah, absolutely. So that's mall stuff. We've finished all the mall stuff. We've gone home. We've discussed how not to get hijacked or robbed while we're putting our stuff in the boot, and that's something I hadn't actually thought about, and I'm glad you brought it up. Putting your stuff into the boot of the car. For me, when I drive and I've got stuff, I don't put it in the boot. I usually just go to get in the car and put it on the seat next to me, which I think mitigates a little bit less. We've got a lot of viewers in sort of rural areas and farming areas that use legally armed for their services in areas like Cradock and Bethlehem and Bloemfontein, outskirts of Bloemfontein, that sort of stuff. These guys are farmers. They live on farming properties. It's a very different scenario to what we see in the suburbs. And I often tell people that I'm not going to get into the politics of farm attacks and that sort of stuff. The reality of the situation that I can say for 100% certainty is that you are on a farm and you're in an isolated area. The police are often 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes away from where you are. If you fire a gun in your house, your neighbor's not going to hear it. Often you have to pay wages. You have to have cash on hand that you pay weekly to your workers, so there's cash on the farm. You've got inherited firearms. Criminals know these things. So it makes you vulnerable.
That's right.
As a farmer, and that's a reality we all have to face as in being in a farming environment. Ek het in Kroonstad gebly, 'n paar skape geboer. I've worked with a lot of farmers, and I picked these things up just watching myself. So farm safety is maybe a little bit different to suburban safety. Sort of in a what are the important things that people need to look out for as farmers?
Look, once again, if you look at farm attacks, there's some parallels that you can draw of where the attack actually happens. The issue, the problem with farms is that you might have to open 2 or 3 or 4 gates before you even get to your house. And it's not a gate that you can open remotely. These are all hand-operated gates. And opposed, different from my gate here in Centurion, that gate is isolated in the field, in the dark, with grass all around, offering massive hiding opportunity for criminals. And somebody has to get out of the vehicle, open that gate, the vehicle has to drive through, the gate has to be closed behind them because the cattle is behind the gate. And that's a high-risk thing. That's a very high-risk thing. So if you're on your own, and you do have to open a gate, make sure that your gates, because there are easy ways of opening farm gates, and then there are farm gates that are tough to open. I know, I've opened a massive amount of farm gates in my time, having operated all over the country on farms. So some gates do open easier, and some gates can be opened with one hand. But some gates you need 2 hands, and that to me is already a stupid thing. If I've got a gate that I can open with one hand, I can have my firearm in the other hand. Right. I'm not gonna flag anybody. I'm not breaking any laws when I'm out on the farm and there's nobody around for miles. It's just me in the dark, in the middle of nothing, and I've got my firearm drawn and I'm opening a gate. Why do I want my firearm drawn? Because now I can just start shooting. I need to have the drop on the attacker. If my firearm stays in the bucky, that's a problem. If my firearm is in a holster where it's not easily accessible, and I've got to use 2 hands to open the gate, I'm taking my fighting hand out of the equation. I can clear my garment as I'm driving up to the farm. So my
Yeah,
firearm, most farmers in
your
any case
property.
carry up like that. Okay, most farmers carry open. And I'm not going to discuss this here now, but that's the way they do it.
Yeah.
So my
Well,
firearm
they're
is
on their
already
property.
open and it's on my property and so on. So if I can draw, then that's fine. But am I one up? Can I get to that firearm? All right.
Yeah.
Can I get to it fast enough? If I don't feel comfortable, because there are still a lot of people out there, and specifically on farms, and I'm saying it with the biggest love, that when last did you shoot this gun? Oh, about 3 years ago. Oh, what ammo do you have there? No, it's something that I inherited from my father. He still bought it off the army back in 1983. All right.
I've got black talons.
So if you don't train with that thing, then it's becoming a risk. Your risk just increases. You need to be training with your firearm. So if you do open your gates and you have to use both hands, then use both hands. But can you drop that gate and go for your firearm and still get a, let's say, a sub 2 second draw and shot on target in, which should give you enough time, then you are okay. But if you are not sure that you can do that, draw the firearm and get your first shot off under 2 seconds, then you've got a problem. Then rather take the firearm out, have it in your hand, finger off the trigger, and manipulate the gate with one hand. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no,
Right.
absolutely.
So gates are a problem. If there are 2 people in the vehicle, then use both people. More and more farmers are coming to on that. Your wife is not just your wife. She's also your co-pilot. She's also your training partner. She's also your team partner. So she should also have a gun with her.
I've said to people, and it was said to me a couple of years back that in a home situation, with a break-in or something like that, that there is violence involved, your wife is your first responder.
Yes.
Because the very first person they're going to be going for is you, because you're the man of the house. They're not going to expect Sarki to pull out a shotgun or a Colt or a Glock 19 and start lowering rounds their way. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. The people around you are your safety buddies.
The husband and wife teams that we get on Lone Operator is just absolutely amazing, and it is exactly that thing. You will think that the husband is the target, and in most and many of those cases, I can tell you, guys attacking that house is going to be in for a massive surprise, because that guy's wife is going to be the bad one in the equation. She's going to fight you, right? So as you drive up to your farm, what happens next? People come from the neighbors, they go home, they open the gates, and they've got their protocols for the gates, but now they get at home. What do? They drop off their wife and their kids and let them go into the house. And while they are entering the house, then the husband goes and he puts the bakkie away. Right. Immediately he splits the force, right? And immediately he puts the vulnerable people in the hands of the bad guys, putting them right into the mouth of the lion. So instead of doing that, have a different procedure. Have a procedure of clearing the house. Have a procedure in place of checking, is anything cleared? Where are the dogs? Why are the dogs acting strange? We all know these things. It's nothing new. But am I actually enforcing this every single time I get home? Because if I don't do it every single time I get home, that's when I'm going to become the target. I need to enforce this every single time I get home without fail. Guys go to church, and there's still a lot of guys going to church on Sunday mornings and leaving their firearms at home because they don't want to take their firearm to church. That's a no. That's just no. There's no excuse for that. That firearm needs to go to church with you, because you're going to come back from church and they are going to wait for you at your farm without your firearm, or with most probably standing there with your firearm, shooting you with your own firearm.
Hell, they're even going to come into the church and rob you. That we've seen these happen on live TV now. People are live streaming their services and being robbed. There was a South African case, if I remember correctly, where he saved the congregation. The guys came in shooting, and he actually took these guys out.
There was 4 cases of that over the past 2 months in South Africa. 4 cases of attackers attacking a church.
I tweeted about it the other day. This idea that people have in South Africa, they need to dispel of it. It's poison. This idea of it's never going to happen to me. It won't happen to me. It's not a matter of if It's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when it's going to happen, and we
That's
need to
the problem.
prepare. We need to prepare with that mindset
Yes.
in thing. Going for a run in a park without some form of protection for yourself. Going to church without a firearm. Parking your bucky first and letting your kids go into the house first. These things we need to. It's a simple shift that's not going to make your life any more difficult.
That's
So
it.
very very important stuff.
Another thing, adding for farmers, if you get home at night, have you got a weapon mounted light on your pistol? But not only that, do you also have a handheld torchlight in your hand? So that if you do get out, you can use this torch. But if there is something going down, you can drop this torch, you can draw your firearm, you've got your weapon mounted light, and you can fight the fight. Because you're going to need light. Because most farms there are so many dark corners in and around farmhouses. It is just what it is. Right. There's so much hiding place. Do I have my IFAC? Do I have my tourniquets? Does my wife know what to do? Can my wife shoot my firearm? What if they drop me and I fall and my firearm falls? Can my wife pick that up and fight with that firearm? Can my teenage son do that? Can my teenage daughter do that? So this becomes more and more of a family thing than ever before. And Tim, what sort of gets my goat is this. This is not new. If we look back at Rhodesia, we look back at Southwest Africa when the war was there. The wives were walking around with FNs. Right? The kids were walking around with Uzis on the farms. There was this whole thing, there was this gun culture where they had to protect themselves from the terrorists. And now we think it's 2023, there's something new happening. It's still the same thing. We are still moving on.
It was going on before. It was going on even before that. If you look at battles that happened, and I'm not just talking specifically about battles with the Anglo-Boer War. I'm talking about battles in between black indigenous people of South Africa with the British, for example. The Basotho fought against the British. The Basotho had an entrenched gun culture, and the whole reason they fought the British off was because they wanted to keep their firearms. They knew how to load their firearms. Their wives knew how to load their firearms. The same with the Afrikaans too. Those women were loading their rifles for their husbands. The kids were loading the rifles for their husbands. They could shoot as well. We've got a long, proud history of all South Africans in the country of firearm ownership and firearm use and competency of using it. Somewhere along the line it died, and seems to have people seem to think this is a new concept, like you say. It's not. It's always been there. So we've got a problem in South Africa in terms of crime. It seems to be quite consistent. Murders are up to 75 people per day. There's all sorts of crime that is on the up in the country. So it's not necessarily for this specific period. These are tools and things that you can use for the rest of the year as well, and implement them and keep them consistent in your lives. And I just want to say thanks so much to Deon for spending time with us and talking about these things. Remember that one of the most important things that you need to look at this time of year is licenses expiring. My license is expiring now in February, so I need to get my renewals done. If you need to get your renewals done, or you're looking to get your firearm license, please don't forget to head over to Legally Arms website, also on our Facebook page. Get in touch with your local branch. We've got branches all over the country. Don't forget to check when your license expires. Very, very important. You don't want to be sitting with an expired license and then rushing to get renewals done and all the paperwork that goes with it. Another very, very important thing is there's nothing worse than being on the range or in a situation where you're using your firearm, you're out on a hunt, and you trip and fall over a rock, and your very expensive Swarovski scope goes smash into a million pieces, or your firing pin breaks, because firing pins break. I think, Deon, you've probably seen it happen in your years where funny things happen to firearms and you can't explain them, and your gun goes click. We've got Legally Armed Insure for these sort of things. Head over to our website as well. Legally Armed Insured is a very, very affordable monthly premium that you pay in, and your stuff gets sorted out immediately. They cover everything from archery equipment, firearm equipment, hunting equipment, and even fishing equipment. So it's called the Outdoor Field and Stream Policy. absolutely 100% take a look at it. It's definitely worthwhile. The mindset I was talking about earlier of it's never going to happen to me. Jom, dit sal met jou gebeur. Now that you said it's never going to happen to you, it can happen to you. So look at legally armed insured, definitely something important, and please don't forget to check if your license is expiring. Don't be stuck without it. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We'll be bringing you more episodes in the next couple of weeks or so, and leading up to the next year. But stay safe always, and thanks so much for tuning in.